Whoa! I had a weird moment happen. You want to kind of hear about it, or do you want to not hear about it? It's all up to you. I'll wait. Oh, you don't want to hear about it? Alright, I'll see you later. I have been editing the book. Again. Motherfucker. And I had a thing happen, which is kind of weird and I kind of want to talk about for a minute. So, you know, I've been on about that dream thing, right? Well, I don't know if it was 3 nights ago or 4, but that feeling came back. I felt that presence, right? Wasn't quite asleep yet. I was falling asleep. And I felt a presence kind of thing. The same presence that being, remember, guiding spirit, God, fucking imagination, anything, you know, whatever it is, I felt that again. And this is the weird thing. I don't know what to do about this. I don't know how to feel about it still. I'm still kind of looking around like, I asked for its name. Because as you remember, I was doing a little bit of research into some of the gods of the Celtic mythology, which kind of led me to Wotan, or Woden, whatever. Wotan, we'll call him. And I was like, is that who that is? I don't understand. And I heard in my head, Senwu. Senewu is how I pronounce it. I think it's like Senewu. C-E-N-N-A-E-W. Senewu. That W is really like quiet. And I looked it up and I found nothing. Not a thing about Senewu. I'm like, who the fuck is Senewu? I can't help but feel like it's a messenger or something. I don't know. It sounds crazy. Like, the more I talk about it, yeah, it does sound fucking nuts. But I don't have any way to describe it other than that. I don't know who that is. So I'm trying to just... So what I usually do whenever I'm kind of lost with a thing like that, I go, well, let's go to the book. Let's see what the book says. And so I went into the book and I'm trying to figure this out. Now, as far as I can understand it, Senewu is... Well, I don't know exactly who Senewu works for. I don't know how to... Man. You're just gonna have to roll with this, because I don't know. I don't even know if I should be talking about this. I'll just say that I don't know Senewu's intent. I don't know exactly what the goal is here. But, as I said, I felt as if it was doing that thing that Celtic god of... What the fuck was his name? It's the Cernunnos, the mythological Celtic being, perhaps. I don't know how true that is and how accurate that is, but the horn god, right? The deer god, or whatever. That's similar. Senewu. I don't know if that's the same being or if that's how the name used to be. I don't god dang know, but that's what hit me. And so I've been doing a lot of watching and kind of learning about Celtic mythology and all of that stuff. So I'm just trying to figure this out, like, okay, what are we talking about here? And that's been my major thing that I've been doing here lately, and I found some places of that have channels. One is called Brehon Academy. I think that's how you pronounce that. Brehon? I don't know. It's an Irish guy, my age or younger, I can't tell. Just going deeply into it, I found a 6-hour video of the mythological cycles. So there's different cycles of things that happened in Ireland when it comes to the invasions and stuff. Hence why they talk about the Book of Invasions. Like, multiple people have come to Ireland to try to invade it or to settle there, and some were some were like able to and some weren't. I can't remember the order, but I like the Partholin and fucking Median and African, which was I think that was one. The Fomorian, the Theobald, the Tuatha De Danann, and some others. Not in that order. I don't remember off the top of my head. But like there's these weird cultures of people and stuff, and throughout that is the mythological story of Ireland and stuff, which is about the most you could find about Celtic-y things, as I understand it. You can only find a little bit about the Picts, you can only find a little bit about, I don't know, Gaulish kind of stuff. And I know that these people didn't really all say like, we are Celts together. It's just kind of how we lump them up. Like we say Indians for all the Native American peoples and all. Like you can't go up to a Navajo guy like, yes, we are Indians, a part of everyone else in this country, or this continent called America, North America. I know that. So that's what the Celts kind of, that's what that is too. It's just like we're branching them all into one group, even though there was many different tribes. The problem is, it's just some of the things that I'm looking at are just erased by the Romans, by the Catholics, and then later on by like little other fucking little churchy groups and stupid shit. And so it's all gone. And so I don't have a whole lot to go off of when it comes to all this shit here. And so I hear that name, Cineo, and I can't help but feel like, okay, that's... I don't know how that came. You know what I'm saying? It just like happened. I said, what is your name? As I was half asleep laying there when I felt that presence, and I just heard, well, I saw it spelled out, Cineo. So I quickly got up and I like typed it in my phone. I was like, Cineo. Yeah, it was on July 23rd, 2 days ago. I just typed in Cineo, the god, the one of dreams. For he will visit one in their dreams and give them the test of the warrior. It isn't quite clear if the warrior fights Cineo or merely one of his subservient beings. And that's just like what I wrote, and I went to sleep. So that's the kind of feeling that I got from this situation. Now, simultaneously, I've been watching stuff about... Remember I told you I was watching those videos about people talking about like the Jordan Peterson and friends talking about the Exodus. They're all getting together and having philosophical debates. You got philosophy guys and you got religious guys and this and that, and they're just talking about it. Well, they made mention of a part in there about someone called hold on, I can't remember the word, but what it basically means is the one when God speaks through you and he's your like voice when you speak to the people, right? Like Moses or fucking whatever other prophet. I don't know. I've never really read the Bible. But that's kind of something that I always felt as like a presence. And I talked about it a few times, the conduit thing. And that's just what it feels like whenever I'm trying to help someone or do something for them. I don't feel like I'm in control of those words if they're coming from somewhere else and they're coming out through me. I knew that to be the case, and I can now see that connection to that storytelling element called the hero's journey and accepting the call. When God speaks to you and he says, I'm going to use you for whatever fucking purpose, you can reject that, and most people do. So it's like the adventure isn't just to seek glory for, like, I don't think for merely self purposes. It's some sort of element like that's eternal, that comes from another place, and then you can through that be elevated by whatever the fuck, some sort of higher being that is in use of you. My kind of thing that I go to the beginning of this video is like, okay, we would just say that being's God, right? Like if you're a religious person, like, oh, that's God talking through you, and you'll do, whatever. But I'm just like, okay, what is that? And that's those connections I see throughout the entirety of mythology. So like the whole grouping of mythology as we understand it are like multiple gods for whatever purposes depending on what religion we're speaking of. So it's like, okay, I've been exploring Celtic mythology and stuff. Well, the sad thing about that is there's not a whole lot that's known about Celtic mythology. There's just little bits here and there, and a reestablishment in like the Middle Ages. But you could go to even to the Greek gods and stuff, and the way they like the story of Prometheus and giving fire to the mankind against the will of Zeus and all that, and he was later punished for it. And these humans were like the subservient people under the gods, and these gods kind of were like off elevated over here, and they would kind of do things with the mortal realm. They'd go down there and like Zeus rape women, or like other gods where they kind of affect nations and shit, the Trojan Wars and all that. They were just passively affecting people at the whim of whatever the fuck they wanted it to be, whatever they deemed it to be. And so there's that kind of understanding that we've always had about the gods and everything, and how they interact with mankind. That's the shit I'm trying to like study, because I'm like, okay, you can become a conduit, you can become a prophet of a god, of the god, whatever the fuck. But what is that gain? We can only speculate. And so when I said like, what is your fucking name? A weird thing that's not leaving me alone. Sineu is the one that came to me, and I'm like, is that an agent of something else? Is that a true just spirit? What the fuck is a spirit? What does all of this mean? So what do? I revert back to my book, because for me the book is the mythology of my life and the way I understand it. So when I go back into the book, I say, well, that's the forgotten king. The forgotten king seeks to find himself, seeks to make himself whole once again, to create the order that is so necessary for this realm. So it's because he can't quite have control of this place, you know, the realm of man, Earth, and the fucking solar system, the shit we can touch physically, that's like our realm. And only through us can these beings communicate. So that's when they work through certain people. For whatever fucking reason, getting back to the point, those reasons are so unknown. But that's why I was like so tripped out, because I thought like, the initial fucking weird dream with the goddamn fighting that shapeshifter felt like a test. And then I somehow did not pass that test. It felt like I did, but maybe I didn't. That has led me on this mindset of like, now I feel more of a presence. Now I feel more under the microscope, so to say. And I feel as if, I mean, I've always felt this way, but that conduit stuff I talked about has grown stronger. Being this conduit, being this bastion, being this tool for some sort of other being. Now, is this merely like, can you equate it to like fucking go sci-fi and say, oh, this is just beings from another dimension that seek to communicate with this one for X, Y, and Z reasons? You know, if like you were to believe like that having trips on whatever those fucking mushrooms and or LSD or whatever the fuck people do, and you're in contact with these other beings, and these beings are creatures from another realm that are connected with ancient mythologies because of what they believed, and we consider them gods, but maybe they're just higher beings. You know, there's that route. Then there's the religious route. Well, no, it's God, the one God, and he's trying to do whatever the fuck he's trying to do, and we're just at the whim of it. There's like different avenues you can go down and say what is, but the fact remains that it does happen, and you are a tool to this kind of, I don't know, I'm just going to say beings, or being, I don't know. Because to me, it feels like different people sometimes. So like, what does that make us? And where do we go from there? What do I do about that? How can I handle the rest of my life when that's what it is? You know, as I'm editing this book, and I'm going back through, and I think I'm 166 pages out of 249, so I'm over halfway now, and I'm reading this stuff, and I can see it happen written down. I see what I wrote, but then there's sections I see, I'm like, I fucking wrote that? What the hell? That doesn't sound anything like me. Those words, and I remember those moments. I'll get into this trance-like state when you're writing, and sometimes you're right on the periphery. Sometimes you're just there and you're cognizant of what you're doing and you're cognizant of everything. But then sometimes you get into these like states where as you're typing or writing or however you do it, you're going through this world or whatever the story is to you, and you just go off. And sometimes the characters say things you don't expect. There's that element, but this one is like, for me, a section that I don't even remember that comes across as so spiritual. Like, it's mind-blowing to read it. I'm like, I can't believe I wrote that. There's no way I made that happen. I don't know. I'm shooken by that. Like, how did I write that? Just like, this is something maybe, but here's a dream. It was a dream, or at least it appeared that way. The dense fog seemed to engulf around the ankles, and its permeance could be tasted when it attacked the senses. He never really did believe in myth, but when his eyes peered through the white shadows, he made out what could only be a visage of memories long forgotten. The sound of water drops upon stone, the light mist grabbing his face, just gentle enough to be almost soothing. He did, however, not want to travel any further. There was a fear growing within that surfaced throughout his whole body. Yet he found himself stepping deeper and deeper into the miraculous gray clouds. The fog had slowly crept back more and more as each step he took forward until they were no more. What sight that broke was oh so familiar, yet there was something quite peculiar. He didn't know if there was some trick at hand as he pushed the stray dangling curling hair from his face. The humid strands of his hair stuck to his forehead, to which he angrily pulled away and tucked them behind his ears. As his mind became more and more clear, he was looking upon a growing familiar sight. Then right away, without hesitation, it was his family home. The tall white stones reached up to the blue shingled roof into a point where each side met. It was a large window. Its large windows covered in beautiful hand-sewn linens of warm pastel colors. It was a bit thin, but the home made up for it in its height. Though its beauty truly lied on the porch. It was not large, but the way it carved up to the home and wrapped around, the fine painted wood gave off a comfort that was now returning. He stepped around the lattice bushes and tiptoed over the flower beds that traced the paved walkway up. His mother's plants were blooming. She always chose the warmest and most beautiful colors once she could get her hands on the various flower shops she could frequent. It was only then did he realize how she genuinely appreciated beauty. To see what she does when her hands picked out delicate plants and touching crafts that fill the home in a sense of artistry. It was almost pure and sweet, so much so that it made him sad. He did not deeply appreciate who she was, but instead chose to see her for what she did and did not do for him. Her flaws were strong, that was true, but the woman gave her life in order for his growth. She gave him a comforting home that from the start made him feel safe. Only from the memories now stretching farther and farther from the past can he remember her warm touch and passionate care for his growing mind. She encouraged his thoughts and helped him find, as best she could, his dreams. Memories began rushing back at such velocity that he found himself sitting on the steps just as he did when he was young. He looked out as he did years before, and the world was just as big as he remembered. It was shimmering and almost void of color. Things didn't quite make full shape. It was like looking out into the big world for the first time again, like he never ventured in it. Never took a step off the porch. He knew he had been out there before, but he began to recall less and less of it, until it seemed to just blow away in the wind. He sat for many moments until he could no longer bear the great overwhelming sensation of guilt and betrayal. Shaking his head, he rose to his feet, turning towards the door. As he passed the old chest his father had made, he paused suddenly to find his hands searching for the latch. The wood was just as smooth as he remembered. His father crafted the chest and added the finish years ago, though he never bothered to tell what it was that gave it such a smooth touch. Yet it was clear his father had given much time and care to make it so. He was always so much in. He was away so much, it was hard to connect with the man. They came to the point where the memory of his mother confiding in her closest friend about his feeling of being a stranger to his son. She could never see that his absence was the very reason they lived safely and never had to worry about life out in the dangerous world. He didn't grow up having everything he wanted, but he had what he really needed. It was also true the fear of his father had grown more and more as he grew farther and farther apart from him. At the end of his childhood, his father had lost just about all of his happier emotions. It was so long since the man laughed and generally seemed to be enjoying life. It was very painful to witness, the shell of a man trying desperately to find his family's affection. Yet fear of being alone consumed him all the more. His life was full of anguish. Eris wiped a tear from his eye, wishing so hard to go back to the time where they could just be together again. The memories that no longer matter how hard he tried, he could not feel them again. His family slipped away as he tried desperately reaching out for them. Why did he push away from them when they only longed to be in their arms again? Why did he push away from them only to long to be in their arms again? As he reached his hand to the door, the voice within whispered almost compassionately, "You can't go within." Eris angrily and disbelief shook the handle violently, screaming for his parents. Over and over he tried in vain to shove the door open, hoping to see their faces one last time. Their gentle smiles and warm embrace, he knew, could somehow save him. If he could just hear their voices again, asking how his day was. His mother's cooking any time he needed food. His father's general attentiveness as Eris told stories of his growing into manhood. The gentle, warm-hearted smile as he watched his son step out into the world while his mother brought in freshly baked cookies to enjoy. He fell to the door in a frenzy. His voice had disappeared as he saw his hands were bloody and swollen. He looked back to the ground with tears in his eyes and said, "I love you guys. I really miss you. I'm so sorry I forgot. I'm sorry. I love you. I truly love you so much. Thank you for being there for me, and I hope I'm doing what you wanted from me." He wiped the tear from his eyes as he rose to his feet. "I will never forget. I promise I will never forget." The anger had slowly been boiling inside him as his bloody hands clenched back into fists. "I will avenge you. I promise you I will." And then the voice said out to him, "We will." Now, just as he dropped himself within the comfort that swirled and held him in the chaos, it quickly swooped away with the sound of rushing air and the overwhelming sensation of feet leaving the ground. Then suddenly the feeling of his innards lifted, as well as the trembling shock ticked up his spine, and frightened embrace of death took him. It was a swallow of doubt, yet the penetrating grip closely around serenity. A scream tore through him as all vision was taken from his eyes, and he was then swallowed by darkness. In that darkness the screaming intensified as bright, burning red eyes opened in the dark. They crept closer to him. Closer and closer they moved. I'm going to end it there. That moment was, when I wrote that, purely of my life. True to everything I've ever felt. I embraced in here. But to unlock that moment are met with my character's deep thoughts. When he goes and starts thinking about this stuff, there are moments that just surprise me that they ever happened. It blew my fucking mind when I would read some of them, that I wrote that. Me, not like, that doesn't seem like something I would write. That section I read, sure, that sounds like me. But then there's sections that just don't. And they blow my fucking mind. I'll just give one more example of, like, as you write and something happens, you don't know how that happened. This is before that part I wrote, and this is this hero guy trying to do some internalizing. His mind wandered far from home just as he did, yet sooner or later his heart could not escape the lingering presence, a presence of what he was leaving behind. Deep within himself was a constant reminder of his loss, his family. It had plagued him over and over again. The scene did not leave his thoughts, and with each replay he again was reminded of what was lost at the start. Though going forward he knew already the stakes were high, but still, so many questions bombarded his swirling thoughts. The feeling of deep, misinterpreted emotion confused and precipitated yet another unknown fact. Why? Why was it to be so? Why did it have to happen to him? Though at the same time it was as if all had transpired was only some passive illusion, a wave of magic over his mind that enticed the darker side of what love he had within, like a test of the soul. For at the same time, Eros in his heart believed there was some purpose to his existence, and all the tribulations life would throw at him. He was to learn or adapt in some sense. Yet at this moment he could not find any feeling of a divine plan, to which it threw him into disarray. After the first few weeks of what seemed like endless travel, he was surprised how he would forget, then to find a constant reminder in any small detail. The world around him had been throwing his heart back into anger and fear. Their deaths played over and over in his mind as he remained quiet with Cyphers, who at this point said not a word and only looked forward. This still frustrated Eros, for in his eyes it felt as if he did not care. What the fuck is wrong with him? I need help. I need someone to help me, and it seems like no matter what, people of the world only care about what affected them on some bullshit, selfish level. So many emotions and feelings would come all at once and just engulf his being, thus sending him down a spiraling path of inner turmoil. And all he wanted to do was escape. Kill that thing that was responsible and let him rot away, dream hunter or not. And then I can go further, but I won't. Those moments as I write just hit me without even like me being me. I don't know. I don't know what that is, but I know that it's yourself processing something that you feel in that moment, or you feel at that time of your life when you start to write and you look back at these areas that things had happened, and you start to think like, you can truly channel what that means to you and what you went through, and from that point, processing life. Okay, Kevin. Processing life is something that will heal you in the end, but when you go through it again, holy shit, does it fucking kill. Having to replay it. So those two moments that I read, one was reminiscent, like the one I just read, the last one, that one was reminiscent of how I would feel so hurt, so alone, and so frustrated because I thought no one gave a fuck because they were selfish. It's a very young thought, it's very naive, but I truly felt that way, and I wanted to have the character go through that as well. But then we jump forward to that dream where you clearly can see he's leaving his childhood behind and he's moving forward. He can't dwell on that anymore. All the things he didn't say, all the things he didn't feel. There was a part in there, he said, when he saw his father's eyes in his vision, eyes that he averted his whole life, now wanting them to be upon him again. Those are real things that I kind of went through turning into a man myself. And so it goes back to like saying, when you feel God is guiding you, sometimes that guiding is making you see within yourself and putting those words down for someone else to see so they can feel something themselves, whatever that may be. Maybe they need to hear that shit again. Maybe they need to be reminded like, oh my God, I feel the same way. Or maybe they need to see something they don't truly feel, but now they know someone else can. So I know that this started with talking about this Seneu, but I I don't understand sometimes my purpose in all of this. I feel this like presence. I feel this higher being wanting me to do something. Sometimes I feel it channel through me when I speak to people. That's why there's a difference between Inner Thought series and For You. The For You feels like it's not me. I'm like, I don't know who that is, but someone's talking through me to you for whatever fucking reason. And sometimes that can happen through the writing. Whether that writing is through self, of my own thing that I'm putting down through this channeling of things, or there are certain parts in this where I feel like it happens in the book too, that I'm not writing this part. And I don't want to read too much of it, you know. I wanted to give those two examples just to show you how you can channel your own life and put it down like that. And see where we can go from there and how you begin the healing process of self-reflection. It's one of the hardest things you can do. But I do know that some sort of healing begins when you accept the call. And to go back to the point of this entire video, I feel the presence. But I've accepted the call, and I'm writing the book. I'm doing these fucking videos because I know that's what the call was. You want to go to have this adventure? All right, let's do it. It's going to be hard, it's going to suck, and you're not going to be happy most of the time. In fact, you're going to be miserable a lot. We're not going anywhere physically, we're going someplace mentally. And that's what the book's about. So I think it's just accept the call, man. Like, no matter what it is, it's just my example, but yeah, you have to. You definitely have to do that because I feel so much grander for it. I feel so much more in depth. I've learned so much. You know, this fucking trailer park little fucking boy who didn't know anything because he already felt like society gave up on him, turned into this person here where I'm at least a little intelligent and I have some skills in certain things. It's brought me up and out of that fucking shell of a life. And I think it could to other people too, if only they hear the call. But that's that. And we finally made a video. So, I don't know. I come out of that shit feeling like, whoa. The next video is going to be me reading that fucking book, though. So, but we're finally into it, so let's do that.